hold on to your seat, because it's that time of year. Time to say,
Hey, 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 it's Fat Albert Halloween Special!
It's the Halloween scene with the Cosby Kids.
So don't miss the Fat Albert Halloween Special right here.
Don't miss the fun today at 4 here on WDZL Channel 39.
Here's Johnny!
I see dead people.
Have you checked the children? When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk here.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
The power of Christ compels you!
Coming to you from New England's darkest heart, this is the Deep Dive Podcast, Horror Month. Join us, if you dare.
Hello, divers. Welcome to week 4 of Horror Month on the Deep Dive Podcast. You all right?
Oh, yeah, sorry, a little bit of a throat thing.
Oh, no, okay, good, that's fine. All right. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. I'm Tom Peeney, writer for Wings Shop Movie Magazine, new issue coming soon. Look for it on Amazon.com. And with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host.
It's Amanda, co-host extraordinaire, famed beauty and lover of all things dinosaur. But of course, you already knew that.
Indeed we did. Now, we're here to uncover some of the hidden gems or unusual offerings lurking in your streaming media services. And that landscape is changing very quickly.
Oh, it is. I'm glad that we decided to do this when we did, because there are so many things that have popped up since our start date.
Exactly. And for, I don't know about you, Amanda, but for me, I feel that our show is responsible for all of it.
Yeah, it's just a shame that we're not getting paid. Yeah.
Right. That's right. We're not getting paid. Oh, boy.
Yeah, this is kind of like the classic duo, especially if you listen to our last episode, which was so much fun.
Yes,
we
it
had
was.
guests from the Belligerents podcast, Jay and Dean, or as we've now tokened, Jan and Dean, a 1970s pop surf group. They're so fun. They're the sweetest married couple I've ever met. And I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But we had a really, really fun time. Thank you so much to those guys. And thank you to everyone who's come on over from their side.
Welcome.
I don't know if you know, but we're just about to crest 3,000 downloads.
That's right. And we've been discussing maybe changing things a little bit because of the people coming over from the Belligerents podcast. So we're going to be including a lot more swearing.
Wait, what?
And, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe a touch more. That's fine.
Okay.
We actually, and this is kind of an interesting story, a little behind-the-scenes thing. We wanted to have the two co-hosts of the Indifference podcast, but they just didn't show up.
Yeah, that's what this is like all the time.
Yes, indeed.
You're welcome.
So since this is the last week of our 4-week series on horror movies, we thought we would like to lighten things up a little bit. So we'll be picking some favorite examples of Halloween hilarity. Now, this means horror comedies, not horrible comedies, Amanda.
Okay, I guess there goes my 2 picks.
Well, see, that's what I was afraid of. Once again.
So there'll now be a posting on our website for new co-host. Has to be witty, has to be funny, has to be amazing, has to be brilliant.
Why start now? But anyway, no. Couldn't do it without you. I've tried.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So, in accordance with the basic premise of our show, Amanda, would you like to go first with your pick?
I think I will.
Excellent.
So my first pick is something I've mentioned before, and it is perhaps one of my most favorite movies ever. It is 1974's Young Frankenstein.
I know.
Yes. Directed by the lovely, amazing, hilarious Mel Brooks, and starring, of course, Gene Wilder, Marty Feldman, Terry Garr, Cloris Leachman.
Such a great cast.
Right? Madeline, Kahn, and Peter Boyle. So I didn't know Peter Boyle was the dad on, what is it? King of the Hill?
Yeah, no. The other king.
Why can't we do this?
Yeah.
It's because it's TV, 90s show. We don't really
TV.
watch TV.
Yeah.
Anyways, he's on that show with the Scientologist, or the former Scientologist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin James.
There you go. Yeah. No, but his wife.
Yeah,
anyways,
his wife got out of that.
Also, he is incredibly tall. Fun fact, while researching this movie, he is so tall that they actually had to do a little bit of false perspective stuff to make sure he could fit within frame. Like,
wow.
It's really funny. Huh. But anyways, for those who don't know, and I'm not sure that it's, obscure as we might normally go, but it's just one of my favorites, and it's full of laughs from the get-go.
Oh yeah.
So it starts off in the beginning, probably in the first 30 seconds, you're already into the laughing, because it's a classic Mel Brooks / Gene Wilder, film. Like, I name any Gene Wilder film and it's just hilarity from the beginning. It's like this, but only it's in black and white, which makes it all the much better. And I've said before, I love black and white films. I think this is their credit, right? It's making it black and white. But anyways, so the premise here is, I can't even, it's so funny.
That's Frankenstein.
Frederick Frankenstein is the American grandson of Dr. Frankenstein from Romania, Transylvania, and this is kind of like a parody of other horror films right from the get-go. So of course they name him Frankenstein, and he's a scientist, and he really just wants to get rid of the shadow of his grandfather, right? Because his grandfather was crazy. He tried to reanimate dead tissue, etc., etc. And in an effort to cast off that shadow, he doesn't speak very highly of him. So when someone from his grandfather's estate comes to tell him, hey, he's passed away and you're the heir, for some reason, he is intrigued at first and decides, I'm going to go there and I'm going to see what all the hype is about. In the first time he meets Marty Feldman, I'm in stitches, literally.
It's pronounced Igor.
How come it's not Frederick Frankenstein? It isn't. It's Frederick Frankenstein. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. This is how much I love this movie. I could quote it verbatim. But from the moment you meet Marty Feldman, it is just hilarity. Cloris Leachman, who is Frau Blücher.
But you know why that's a joke, right?
No.
You don't know why that's a joke?
Is it because she looks like a horse?
No.
Oh.
Because her name is German for glue.
Oh, that's right, too. Yes. Blücher. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's glue.
That's why the horses are scared of her.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So throughout the film, he's finding hints and references to his grandfather, and first being a non-believer, he ends up becoming a believer and saying this may work. In fact, one of the biggest scenes is him just saying it could work, and so in order to try this experiment, he ends up following the same footsteps as his grandfather, maybe subconsciously or not realizing it, but they go to a graveyard, they dig up Peter Boyle, and they try to reanimate him. They send Igor, i.e. Marty Feldman, on a trip to get a brain, because you need a brain that has been recently no longer functioning, to put it in this body. And so he sends him off with some major political scientist, philanthropic guy named Hans Delbruck. So Igor goes into the brain bank and tries to pick up this sort of canister that's holding the brain, and he ends up dropping it because, why wouldn't he? And the next one that is available just happens to be one that is entitled Abnormal.
Now, that brain that you gave me, was it Hans Delbruck's? No. Ah, good. Would you mind telling me whose brain I did put in?
And you won't be angry?
I will not be angry.
Abby someone.
Abby someone. Abby who?
Abby Normal.
Abby Normal.
I'm almost sure that was the name.
Are you saying that I put an abnormal brain into a 7.5-foot long, 54-inch wide gorilla? Is that what you're telling me?
Abby someone.
Abby something.
Abby
so
normal.
They put the brain into Peter Boyle, and as you can imagine, it doesn't go very well.
No.
Because he's confused. He's got huge limbs, and it's hilarious. But in an effort to turn around the stereotypical or stigma this quote unquote monster has, he tries to humanize him, and he puts him in a top coat and tails, and they go on the town and sing "Putting on the Ritz."
Put on the Ritz.
Which, by the way, if you are interested, that soundtrack for that movie is available on iTunes.
Really?
Yes, it's amazing. And then Madeline Kahn comes into the picture, and she has an incredible voice, by the way, or had, I should say.
Absolutely.
It's just so funny. There's probably not a period of at least more than a minute without a laugh. It's just so funny. So in the end, sort of it all works out, but there's a little bit of a twist and a good last laugh at the end of it. But I just couldn't stop laughing, and I have watched it probably twice a year, every year since I first watched it with my mom, over a decade ago. So IMDb gives it an 8 out of 10, which I was not expecting, to be honest. Thought it would be a bit higher. Yeah, Metacritic gives it an 80. Rotten Tomatoes, though, takes the cake at a 92%.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So, and that's an audience score and a actual critic score. Believe it or not, fun fact, Roger Ebert gave this a 4 out of 4 when he was alive. Yeah, legitimately. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10.
Well, yeah.
That's not surprising. Yeah.
No.
It's hilarious. I love Gene Wilder. I mean, I think everyone thinks of him as Willy Wonka, but there's just so many other roles that he is.
Blazing Saddles. He was
Blazing
amazing
Saddles. That's just that really towed the line between really racist jokes.
Oh yeah, you can do that today.
You cannot,
no.
And he got away with it. But
he did.
So funny. What I found interesting is that it's not available on iTunes, right?
Really?
So it's not something you can easily download, but you can find it right now. A copy of it on YouTube. Of course, it's a little bit copyrighted, so
a little bit.
But you can also, you can get it on iTunes for $4.99, but you can't really find it on any of the streaming apps. Funny though, remember how I mentioned Turner Classic Movies has a horror month?
Yes.
So right now you can buy that on their website for $10. You can buy a digital copy, yes,
wow.
which then you can then import into Movies Anywhere, Vudu, that kind of thing.
Nice.
So totally worth buying it. I mean, it's so funny. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, and it's one of those where you can just put it on in the background.
Oh my God,
As soon as you listen to it, you're like, ah.
Yeah, exactly.
There's some part that's going to be really funny.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
But that's my first pick, and yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you.
That is a fantastic pick.
It's such a good pick, right? Oh, so good. I'm going to go home and watch that again.
There you go. So, as far as my pick goes, I tend to go a little bit more obscure, just because that's who I am.
Yeah, and you're a lot smarter.
Well, no, not really. So, a little bit of history before I reveal my pick. So, way, way back in the dark ages of 1978, the classic film Halloween basically kickstarted the slasher movie wave in the early 80s. I mean, you had movies, and most of them were really bad. You had Friday the 13th, My Bloody Valentine, Prom Night, and that pretty much ruined any annual celebration for 80s kids. Because almost every holiday or kind of get-together was turned into a horror movie.
Right, that's what the 80s were known for, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But those were so popular, those movies. I mean, they were... Every week it seemed like another horror movie was coming out in the theaters.
Right.
And they were really, really profitable. So somebody had to parody them. That makes a lot of sense. When something is very successful, you make a parody of it.
Sincerest form of flattery.
Exactly. So... my pick was the first film to parody the slasher genre, and it's called Student Bodies. And it's from 1981, which was a year after Friday the 13th came out. So this was really the first slasher parody.
Parody, yeah.
Exactly. It kind of tried to be the Airplane of horror movies. It didn't totally succeed. The first half of the movie is really, really funny and pretty inventive. And then it kind of gets dragged down trying to explain what's going on and trying to, solve the mystery and all that. And it really doesn't know what to do from that point on. But it's like the first half is incredibly funny to me anyway. And I've got a weird sense of humor. So there you go.
Wow.
So the film opens on a quiet suburban home at night, right? And if you've seen Scream, you know what I'm talking about with this kind of thing. So a caption says, it's Halloween night. Wait a minute. Then the caption changes. It says, oh, it's Friday the 13th. No, wait. It changes again and says, it's Jamie Lee Curtis's birthday.
Activia.
Yeah, basically. the original Scream Queen. Essentially, so this is the classic slasher plot. This mysterious killer, who's called the Breather, stalks and kills teenagers who, God forbid, dare to have sex. The Breather also constantly comments on what he's doing while he's doing it. He's essentially breaking the fourth wall and talking to the audience as he's getting ready to do these awful, horrible things.
Hello, it's me, the heavy breather from every horror film you've ever seen. You know me. First I terrorize my victim by the telephone, then I choose my murder weapon. A gun? Nah, too easy. A hatchet? Nah, I always use a hatchet. For this movie I want something very frightening and deadly. Then I climb the stairs to surprise my victims. Why do they always live upstairs?
Right.
And he's like totally disgusted by like the most innocuous things that happen while he's trying to kill people.
Mhm.
It's like everything's such a major inconvenience.
Mhm.
Like he steps in some gum and he's like, "Oh, gum! I like to kill the kid with the gum." And you know, he's like sugarless. So that's basically he's the killer, but we don't know who he is. And then we're kind of introduced to the cast of characters who are all suspects, of course.
Mhm.
But the main suspect has to be this naive young virgin girl, Toby, and she's the last person you would expect. But everybody thinks she's the killer, and you're like, why? She's like the last person anybody would think who would do something like that. But everybody, for some reason, suspects her, probably because she's been at the scene of every murder.
This sounds like the plot from Scream.
Oh yeah, definitely. Of course, this was 15 years before Scream.
Before, yeah.
Yeah. So she's trying to prove her innocence with the help of her dorky boyfriend. But none of that plot really makes any difference at all. This movie is just an excuse to throw joke after joke at the audience. Some of them hit and hit pretty hard. Some of them don't, and some of them are just plain odd. I mean, there is a body count score on the screen. So it gives you, and the body count is whenever there's a murder.
In case you've forgotten. Yeah.
In case you've forgotten. And there's like little, like they actually actively point out clues on the screen with arrows. It's like, oh, look at that. There's a clue. It's just funny. And you've got the whole cast of characters are really fun. There's a sexually repressed principal, a shop teacher who's obsessed with making horsehead bookends. There's a whole thing about horsehead bookends. It's like a running gag.
Weird.
There's, for some reason, this does not take place in the southern town, but there's a southern sheriff, which makes no sense. And this the one really oddball character is this impossibly tall and lanky guy who's never been in anything else, I don't think, who's never been in any other movie. And his character's name is Malvert.
Malvert?
Malvert. And he's referred to in the credits as the Stick.
Oh.
Yeah. And, Malvert is just, he's like the maintenance man.
Mm-hmm.
And he just sort of like saunters around and looks suspicious. And, his running gag is, sometimes he tells people that sometimes he pees red. It's like, sometimes Malvert pee red. And I was like, what?
So it's like one of those things where he could definitely be the killer.
He could be.
But then you feel bad because you're like, wait a minute, he's probably not, and he's just weird.
Yeah, basically that's what goes on. But the whole premise is basically find out who the breather is. But we never do get like a satisfying kind of resolution to this thing. But what we get is more endings than Lord of the Rings. And a very lazy kind of Wizard of Oz type, did it really happen? Was it all a dream? Kind of thing at the end. But for me, this is a real sentimental favorite. I watched this movie so many times on pay cable in the 80s. It was on constantly. And I thought for years... Yeah, exactly. For years, I thought I was the only one who ever knew this film existed. And then I discovered... I made friends that like also knew that film, and we would like endlessly quote dialogue from the movie.
That's
because
the
there's some
best.
great one-liners and little things that make no sense without context, but are so funny if you know what you're talking about. So it's kind of a sentimental favorite for me. Now, for being a slasher movie parody, there's lots of sexual innuendo, but no nudity or gore. So it is a really not a nasty horror movie. It's kind of, it's very genteel in a lot of ways in the way that it presents itself. And ultimately, that presented a problem for the filmmakers because they wanted an R rating. And they were not going to get it because R-rated films at that time did better, especially horror movies.
Oh, I see.
Than anything else. And so they realized when they made this film, they had nothing to generate an R rating. So what they did, which was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life, they in the middle of the movie they cut just a scene. They just cut the scene, and they cut to a distinguished-looking gentleman sitting behind a desk in an office, just staring at the screen, and basically getting the film an R rating.
Oh.
In the scene with what he said.
Do they splice in some adult movie film?
No. I'll tell you what we're going to do is we're going to play that clip.
Ladies and gentlemen, in order to achieve an R rating today, a motion picture must contain full frontal nudity, graphic violence, or an explicit reference to the sex act. Since this film has none of those, and since research has proven that R-rated films are by far the most popular with the movie-going public, the producers of this motion picture have asked me to take this opportunity to say, "F*** you."
Yeah. How about that?
I can't believe that 20-second clip is all that it took to make it an art.
Yep.
That's incredible, and that's genius.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's all they had to do was splice that scene into the movie, and boom, R rating. Brilliant.
So good.
Absolutely brilliant. So it's stuff like that makes me love this movie.
Yeah.
Now, before the movie actually begins, though, there's a little a notice on the screen that says, this motion picture was based on an actual incident. Last year, 26 horror films were released. None of them lost money. So that's where you're getting your attitude. Like, they're doing this basically just for the money.
Well, it's really funny they bring that up because then when I was thinking of it, if I hear about a movie that's PG-13, automatically I'm thinking it's probably not going to be that good, right? Because it's not going to have any cool explosions or like swearing or anything. It's crazy how the movie industry has sort of like trained people to think like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Originally, it's interesting, when they originally came up with the rating system in the 70s, the X rating was not considered pornography.
Right.
There was an X movie rated X movie that won Best Picture, which was Midnight Cowboy, back in the early 70s. But somehow that got basically co-opted by the adult film industry, who would put like things like triple X or whatever, which really had no meaning.
Right.
But what that did is that made the X rating synonymous with pornography, and so people basically stopped using it on their traditional movies.
Right.
So it kind of ruined that whole thing.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of porn. No, seriously, thank you. Yeah. So this film actually did not lose money either. The film was a minor success for Paramount Pictures that released the film. It actually was one of the top 100 highest grossing films of the year.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
so it actually did pretty well for being a really super low budget little horror movie. Now, direction of the film was credited to the screenwriter, which was he was a frequent Woody Allen collaborator named Mickey Rose. He wrote a lot of Woody Allen's one-liners. But some accounts actually say the film was directed by a man named Michael Ritchie. If you don't know that name, he directed Fletch, The Golden Child, and a bunch of other movies. He was supposed to be credited as producer of the film, but he took his name off the project and used a different name, the name Alan Smithy. Now, if you're not familiar with that name, we're gonna talk about that on another show because there's a really good story behind that.
Ooh.
But essentially, that name is used by any director that wants their name taken off the film. They have to use that pseudonym
because they don't want to be associated with it.
Exactly.
Oh.
So that's the name. If you see that name, you know that the director wanted their name taken off the film, and it is replaced with that name.
Okay.
Yeah, that is from the Directors Guild, by the way, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, we'll have a little more in-depth show about that at some point. Now that I have made you all want to watch this movie, let's talk about the scores. 5.6 out of 10 on the Internet Movie Database, and this breaks my heart. 25% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Ouch.
Yeah, it deserves a lot better than that because I think it's a seriously flawed film, but the funny parts are really, really funny. So, if you want to see this, and you should, it's available to rent for $2.99 on Amazon Prime Video, on YouTube, and Google Play. So that's it. Student Bodies from 1981. My first pick.
Not bad.
Thank you.
That clip just gets me. I literally, you should watch that movie based on that one clip because it's genius.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so my second pick. I am sometimes known around these parts, the Studio D, as the triple F person, the family friendly flicks.
Oh, I thought it was Food, Folks, and Fun.
Nope. So I decided that, you know what, I'm gonna continue on with that. And plus, it's Halloween. Everyone loves Halloween. Everyone loves to laugh. But let me ask you a question. Around sort of Christmas time, do you ever watch those like really old stop motion puppet films? You know, with like Rudolph and the Snowman, all that stuff?
As a matter of fact, yes, I do.
Perfect.
I'm a big fan of those. I have a Heat Miser and Snow Miser salt and pepper shakers.
I'm Mr. Heat Miser.
And I have all of those characters as ornaments that I put on the tree every year.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So basically, you know where I'm going with this.
I would think so.
You like Rankin Bass films.
Yes. Are you going for Mad Monster Party?
Hey, don't ruin it.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I am. I love this movie. This was actually a suggestion from my husband, who is absolutely obsessed with this movie. Okay. So basically, think Rudolph, right? And you know, the Frosty the Snowman, that style of film, but for like scary horror things.
Mad Monster Party!
Mad Monster Party!
Starring Boris Karloff, and, in order of their appearance,
Dracula,
Frankenstein,
the werewolf,
the Hunchback,
the mummy,
Dr. Jekyll,
Mr. Hyde,
and, in order of his disappearance,
the Invisible Man.
Also starring Phyllis Diller as the hostess with the leastest. Mad Monster Party!
They're playing your song, honey. Let's dance.
It's a come-as-you-are party that's out of this world.
You don't get invited.
You get committed.
It's a psychedelic scare.
With the grooviest ghouls of all time.
Mad Monster Party!
Now, it was made in 1967, directed by Jules Bass, which, of course, half of Rankin Bass.
Yeah.
But it is voiced by people like Boris Karloff, who, I mean, needs no introduction.
The Grinch himself.
Exactly. Phyllis Diller.
Oh.
Like, she was kind of annoying, but, like, so funny. And I think that's part of her charm.
Mm-hmm.
But, anyways, here's the thing. So, the movie, the producers who put the movie out, or I should say the studio, couldn't actually get rights to the names of the creatures, like Frankenstein, Dracula, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they had to be a little bit creative with that. To the point where Frankenstein is just called the monster, and Phyllis Diller, who plays his wife, is just called the monster's bride, the monster's wife.
Yeah.
So there's things like that. So Boris Karloff is Baron von Boris Karloff, Frankenstein, I should say, and he is a scientist, right? And he has achieved the ultimate legacy. He's made like a potion or a weapon that can destroy the world, right? So what he does is decide, you know what, I've done everything, I'm going to retire. And I'm going to host a party with all of these famous monsters, and I'm going to pick one of them as my heir. Sort of one of those like mystery, like who's it going to be kind of thing. And of course it sets off like the infighting. So, the Wolfman shows up, Dracula, a Swamp Thing, they're so funny. And then there's his nephew, who I read that he was supposed to be a reference to James Stewart, like the like an angel gets his wings, James Stewart.
Oh yes.
So it makes sense by the way that he speaks. You would understand. But basically, they all come to this one place. It's in the Caribbean, and they all meet up. And individually, they're all introduced by like sort of little like snippets, like the Monster's Bride. I'm sorry, I can't help laughing because it's just so ridiculous. And like they're coming in, and then the mummy and the invisible man shows up. Oh, and by the way, last week when I did that show, I forgot completely about Mad Monster Party. And it's so funny because there's a small little snippet of that film in this one here, in terms of the a little bit of a what's the word, quote, like they paraphrase something in the movie, but basically the movie involves who's going to be the heir, who gets the Tyler potion, and one by one they all start fighting. They start trying to trick each other to get each other out of the way. Turns out that his nephew, who is this just like dorky little kid with glasses, and who his very let's say attractive female assistant falls in love with, is going to be the heir. So push comes to shove, and someone detonates the major weapon formula thing, and this monster called It, which is really kind of like King Khan kind of thing, kidnaps Francesca, and it's a huge throwback to like obviously King Kong and all that, and he has to rescue her, and they survive kind of like almost in a Titanic scene. They're floating away. It's so cleverly done. And I imagine it took a lot of time for a puppet movie.
Oh yeah, those are like very intricate.
Yeah, so crazy. And even now, just the colors and the effort they put into the little puppets must have been insane. But it's so funny. And I think for a 1967 film, they certainly had a different type of humor than maybe kids' shows would have today. Yeah. So they get away with some adult type themes. I mean, just the way that they look. I mean, the Francesca is just like, she's, yeah, you'll notice, you'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. Funny thing too, like his nephew, who's called Felix, he's an asthmatic.
Oh God, yeah.
It's just, he's like not at all the person that you would think that Baron Frankenstein would pick for his heir, but he ends up being the perfect candidate in the end. But so it's just, it's so funny. So in the end, Francesca, who was the assistant, I believe that she, like, I don't know, she admits something to Felix, like she's a robot or she's a creation or something like that, but they still live happily ever after, and it's really funny. So there's one guy who played most of the monsters. His name is Alan Swift. He played Felix, Yetch, Count Dracula, Frankenstein's monsters, the werewolf, Quasimodo, Invisible Man, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, It, Skeleton, Chief Mafia, Machiavelli, Mr. Cronkite, Frightener, Captain, First Mate, and the Mailman.
Wow.
He played all of them.
That's a one-man cast.
It really was. You got Phyllis Diller, Ethel Ennis, who I think is a famous actress or musician, songstress, and yeah. So it's so funny, and I think where it gets its real like muscle is that it's not necessarily dated. Of course, it is an older style film. It uses, puppetry that we don't necessarily see. But if you're fans of, like, I don't know, Nightmare Before Christmas, right? Yeah. It's such a great production value that it carries itself for now, 4 or 5 decades. So you should definitely check it out. It did spin off a sequel, like a cartoon. I think my husband called it Mad Monsters. And I'm supposed to say that he, quote, says that it is poopy, unquote. That is my husband, Wayne. But let's see the scores. So IMDb gave it a 6.7. Not too bad. Yeah, Metacritic gives it a 70. Mm-hmm. I'm giving it an 8.5. I thought it was hilarious. It's definitely applicable for today. Got some a little bit of adult humor, but it makes it funny and it makes it worth watching. Also, I enjoy the music. They do a lot of singing in it. Yeah. You can currently find it on Google Play and YouTube for $1.99 rental. Nice. There are some snippets on YouTube, but you're better off just renting it and watching it.
Definitely.
And if you can find it to buy it, buy it.
Yeah, it'll become a regular yearly thing for you.
100%.
Just like Nightmare Before Christmas is for a lot of people.
Which I watch at Halloween and Christmas.
Exactly.
Is it a Halloween movie? Is it a Christmas movie?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it's for the Rankin Bass people. And they did so much great work.
I mean, The Grinch, right? Yes,
they did so much. I mean, Rudolph and all that.
Everything. And I think what's great too about this is, like I said, it just year after year and age and generation after generation just loves it, that it's not old. It's not dated. So much like you love Heat Miser and Snowman and all that fun stuff, you carry that from your childhood. People will carry this too with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely. Good pick.
The second pick, I love it.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
All right.
Not bad.
All right, we're hitting all cylinders here. This is good. Then I'm going to derail that train
Okay.
now. So for my second pick, this is actually new territory for me.
What?
Yeah. See, throughout the entirety of this podcast, I have pretty much kept my picks limited to films.
Yeah.
I usually don't pick like television or like episodic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a particular reason why. It's just where my brain goes.
Sure.
This time is a little different. So
you picked Buffy the Vampire Slayer, didn't you?
No, I didn't. So this is not. So it's not a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is a Halloween TV special.
Nice.
That aired when I was a wee lad
in
the 1970s. Now here's the thing. I don't actually remember seeing it when it aired, which was in 1976. But I got a copy some years ago of this thing and was mesmerized at how completely and thoroughly awful it was. And I loved every minute of it. I am referring to, of course, the Paul Lynde Halloween special. Now, if you don't know who Paul Lynde is, let me clue you in. He's basically your sarcastic, over-the-top, snarky uncle who never came out of the closet, but pretty much everyone knew. Yeah, we all got that. So he made a career out of that kind of, like, snarky persona. He appeared on shows like Bewitched, Broadway musicals like Bye Bye Birdie, and he was a perennial on the Hollywood Squares game show in the 70s and 80s. And his one-liners became absolutely legendary. So the game show, actually, the Hollywood Squares, boosted his popularity to the point where he was given the chance to star in his own projects. Not a good idea, as it turns out, that he was able to do that. Now that brings us to the Paul Lynde Halloween special. I'm kind of at a loss to even try to describe this thing. This is one of those things where, how did this get on the air? Even though it was the 70s and there was a lot of, weird stuff going on.
Right.
How did this happen? So it was a primetime network special with more gay sexual innuendo than an entire season's worth of Will and Grace. Yeah. So Lynde plays himself, as he usually did, and he is recruited by two witches, right? Margaret Hamilton, the actual Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz, playing the Wicked Witch of the West with the green makeup,
and everything?
And everything.
Wow.
And a woman named Billie Hayes, who played Witchy Poo from H.R. Puffin Stuff, which was a popular kids show in the 70s.
Wow.
So these two kind of iconic witches want Paul Lynde to be their spokeshuman, quote, and try to improve the negative image of witches. So if he agrees, they will grant him 3 wishes. Not witches, wishes.
Mr. Lynde, I want you to meet my sister.
Your sister?
Mr. Lynde, I've been dying to meet you.
Looks like you already did. Margaret. Oh, Margaret. Your sister is a witch. I'm getting out of here.
Oh, don't be alarmed, Mr. Lynde. There's nothing to be frightened of. My pretty.
You're witches.
That's why we brought you here. We want you to help us out.
I don't do benefits.
Well, we're trying to soften the image. We've had some bad press. Come on, Mr. Lynde. Give a ghoul a break.
A ghoul? I can't believe I'm hearing this. How can you stand there with a straight face, with a crooked face, and tell me you're not wicked? After all those things you did to Snow White.
Distortion.
How about Hansel and Gretel?
We were framed.
And what about Dorothy and her little dog Tub-Tub in The Wizard of Oz?
She asked for it. And her little dog, too.
I hate to break this up, but I left my jacuzzi on fast forward.
This leads to all kinds of bizarre sketches. As Paul Lynde makes his wishes, he becomes a trucker, like in the 70s, like a CB radio kind of a trucker. An Arab sheik, okay, that's not offensive. And finally, once again, 70s, a disco dancer. Now, can this possibly get any weirder? Well, yes, it can. Because the musical guest on that show was Kiss. Yes, that Kiss. Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, etc.
In makeup?
Yes, they perform. Well, it's a Halloween special, so why not, right?
Well, I didn't know if it was like post or like pre their makeup thing.
This is right there, right in the beginning of
Detroit Rock City.
This is prime time Kiss right here.
That makes sense.
And they do a couple songs, and then the rest of the time they're hanging out on the set, looking completely befuddled as to why they're there, which I don't blame them. So this thing is a treasure trove of bad 70s variety show cheese. It's got Mrs. Brady herself, Florence Henderson. It's got Betty White. It's got Donnie and Marie Osmond. My God.
What?
Yes. You could literally build your own Nightmare Before Christmas by watching that special and then watching the Star Wars holiday special after that. Oh, my God. That is a double feature of holiday hell.
I want to watch it.
So this is a prime example of what is called, and I'm not making this up, bulldada. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, it refers to something that is so utterly lacking in quality that it transcends its own dreadfulness and becomes something worthwhile. Basically, something so bad that it's good.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's what it means. Something so bad that it basically transcends its own badness and becomes something good because of its badness.
Sesame Street.
Yeah. It's just like, so bad it's good. That's what that is. And if you like that kind of stuff, and I do.
Yes.
Do yourself a favor and experience, don't watch, experience the madness that is the Paul Lynde Halloween special. Now, this actually does, even though it's not a feature film, it does get an IMDb score of 7.4 out of 10.
Wow.
Simply, I mean, you won't believe what you're watching. It's just so crazy. Now, it can be seen if you're a subscriber to Amazon Prime on their Amazon Prime Video. And as of this recording, you can see a copy on YouTube as well. So that's it, the Paul Lynde Halloween special.
Very good.
Yes. So, Manda.
Yes.
Have you any honorable
I
mentions?
Do.
Good.
I definitely do. So my first one is it's a triple F, but it's also funny. The Disney Channel on YouTube does this thing where they will actually like go live, as it were, but they play certain movies sort of continuously. So throughout the Halloween month, October, they're playing Halloween Town on their YouTube channel free, and you can watch the entire movie.
Nice, that's great.
And everyone knows the first Halloween Town is good, not the second one, but if you're from that generation, you might enjoy it. And then my second one, and probably my I want to watch this movie all the time, is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Oh, yes.
Talk about just stupid laughs.
Yeah.
You have to watch it. You just got to watch it.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah. But other than that, those are my honorable mentions.
Actually, that's quite nice. I have some of my own. One of them is Little Shop of Horrors. Both versions, the black and white version and the 80s version, the musical version. They're both so much fun.
Yeah.
Great, funny horror movies. That really kind of don't shy away from the horror at the end.
Sure, yeah.
So, that's like you're laughing and like, at the same time, which is kind of nice.
Like it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which is one of my all-time faves.
No.
It's a brilliant, brilliant movie. For you Brits out there, Shaun of the Dead.
Ooh, funny.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And a documentary, Best Worst Movie, which is a documentary about a horror film called Troll 2, that is a sequel to the movie Troll, but it is not a sequel to the movie Troll.
And it's a prequel to like Troll 4.
Yeah, it really has nothing to do with the original Troll movie. They just slapped a 2 on it.
Yeah.
And it's about basically the people in this small town that were making this movie and the impact that it has had on the townspeople and the fans of that movie.
Yeah.
So Best Worst Movie, if you can find it, is really, really funny and kind of touching in some ways, but it's a great documentary about a low-budget horror movie.
Yeah, okay.
It's so good. So there we
Very
go.
good.
That's the honorable mentions. Now, to recap our picks, Manda, what were yours?
My first pick, let me get out my notes, was Young Frankenstein.
Dun, dun, dun.
With Gene Wilder. Absolute brilliant comedy film. Just brilliant film in general. And then my second pick was Mad Monster Party. There's actually a question mark on that by Rankin Bass Films, 1967, Puppetry.
Very nice. My picks were the 1981 comedy slasher parody movie Student Bodies. Check it out. And the wacky, wild, and weird Paul Lynde Halloween special from 1976.
Oh, man. So good.
All those movies, that is a fun-filled evening right there.
Mm-hmm.
So do yourself a favor, check these out. What we'd like to do, and what I think would be great, is if by chance you decide, listeners, to see any of these, let us know what you think.
Absolutely.
We want to hear. We want to hear what you think. So if you see these movies and you have a comment, we would be happy to read them on the podcast.
Absolutely.
So you can reach us at our email, which is
thedeepdivepodcast@gmail.com.
Absolutely.
Also
so
got
please,
various
please,
social medias, right?
Yeah.
So at the Deep Dive Podcast on Instagram. You can visit us at thedeepdivepodcast.com.
Mm-hmm.
And big surprise, if you like t-shirts, if you wear t-shirts, we have some for you.
We do. So check out. There's a link on our website
Mm-hmm.
to our T-shirts, and they are guaranteed to get you the best candy if you're trick or treating.
That's true.
That's right.
One Amazon review said that.
Yeah. So if you want your costume to be a podcast listener, which I think is probably the cheapest costume, you can make yourself some fake AirPods, and
Ooh, just put Q-tips in your ear.
Yeah, and just pretend to be listening to some true crime thing. So yeah, that's fun.
But yeah, we would love to hear some more from you. Please, we're very active on our Instagram, but if you want to, actually, hello to all of our new Instagram followers. We got quite a few in the last couple of weeks. So
Absolutely.
Hello to all of you. Thanks for sticking around. So yeah, send us a comment, send us a, praise, love.
Trolling.
Just praise and love.
Okay, no trolling.
No, whatever you want, send it our way.
Please do. We would love to hear from you. Not you.
No, but you.
Yes, and also you.
You can also rate us on iTunes, too.
Yes.
And that's how we get to be heard by more people. So if you like us, go ahead and throw us, 5 stars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now that the begging portion of the show has ended.
Hashtag please sponsor us.
Exactly. On our next dive, we've got something big. We've got something big planned. It's our Halloween special.
You mean we haven't been doing that for the last month?
Shh, don't blow it.
Okay, sorry.
This topic, the topic for the Halloween Christmas movies. No, I'm just kidding. It's all things Halloween. We're going to have some interesting discussions, not just about movies and TV and all that. We're going to have some discussions that deal directly with the Halloween experience.
I am so excited.
Itself. There's going to be some surprises, a few surprises, and even more surprises.
And candy.
Oh, yeah. Well, for us, yeah.
For us.
Basically, I'm going to be in a $100,000 bar coma. I'm planning on that. That's
I'm
my
eating
favorite.
all the Reese's.
You can have them because I don't like peanut butter.
All right, I'm ending this podcast right now.
What? Well, we're at the end anyway.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so for the amazing Manda and all of us here in Studio D, which is just me and Manda. So
yeah, this is true.
I'm Tom Feeney. We will see you soon.
Exterminate. Exterminate.
Don't get all Dalek with me.
Oh.
For links to all our social media feeds, visit our website at thedeepdivepodcast.com and send us your suggestions and comments at thedeepdivepodcast@gmail.com. This podcast may contain copyrighted material, the use of which has not necessarily been authorized by the copyright owner. All programs reviewed were available in the United States at time of recording, but are subject to change by date or region. The Deep Dive Podcast is a production of Automaton Media.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
You're putting me on.
No, it's pronounced Frankenstein.
Do you also say Froderick?
No, Frederick.
Well, why isn't it Froderick Frankenstein?
It isn't. It's Frederick Frankenstein.
I see.
You must be Igor.
No, it's pronounced Igor.